Aloha! Welcome to Departures to Alpha Centauri, sponsored by the United Galactic Federation of Planets. My name is Merlin, and I'm your tour guide. Today is July 12th, 2013, and as those of you that have watched my previous programs know, we are still here. The 30 programs I've done before this talked about the end of time being December 21st, 2012, and we've passed that point in time. So apparently we're on, you might say, the fifth quarter. We're in regulation overtime, and this is not to say that all the events that were predicted from before aren't going to happen. Just as a program note, this is the second Friday of July the 12th, and for the next 12 months, on every second Friday at 6 p.m., you'll have me with Departures to Alpha Centauri. This is a live call-in show, and I encourage anyone with any questions to please call in. As you may also notice, I've changed my image, so I no longer have the long hair and the long beard, and I got my teeth fixed, so I now have a more presentable appearance. And I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. For those of you that are familiar with these programs, you know that means this is a level 1 program, which is PG-13. It's for all audiences. In some cases, parents might be cautioned for children under 13, but in tonight's show, there shouldn't be anything of any concern. So everybody can watch. And as I mentioned before, we have phone numbers, so you're welcome to call at any time. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube later this week or the next couple weeks, you'll realize this is not a call-in for you. Once it's past tonight, you can't call in. So you won't even see the numbers on the screen. And that'll make things less complicated. So since we're not talking about departures to Alpha Centauri tonight, let's talk about departures to somewhere else. Well, as you may have known from my previous shows, my wife and I are from Hawaii. We spend part of our time here in Tucson and a lot of our time in Hawaii. And as you can see by the background, that's Hawaii. That's a beautiful scene shot along the Kona coast looking north. And as you can see, there's lots of palm trees and also some big black rocks out there in the water. Well, those are lava rocks. And that's because the big island of Hawaii is a volcano island. It's actually made up of 5 volcanoes. 2 are active. They're considered alive. 1 is very much alive. It's been running continually since 1982 for 31 years. And another one has erupted in the last 20 years. 1986 was the last eruption of Mauna Loa. And then 2 are called dormant. Mauna Kea and Hualalai are both dormant. They have erupted in the last few hundred years, but they don't consider them active. And then one of the volcanoes is extinct, and that's up on the northwest corner, Kohala. It no longer erupts. But for those of you that are not familiar with Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, in fact, let me give you a quick explanation of the islands. Here's a map that I used last fall in a program called Flossie, in which I talked about Flossie and the beasts. And the beasts included 2 dinosaurs, a T-Rex and a Triceratops, and also a reference to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verses 1 and 10. But in the meantime, here are the islands of Hawaii. As you can see down here in the lower right corner, this is the big island. This is the one we'll talk about primarily tonight. And then as we head up towards the northwest, we have Maui, Kaho'olawe, which is here, Molokai, Lanai, Oahu, Kauai, and way off here to the west is the island of Ni'ihau. Now, each of these islands has a nickname. Ni'ihau is called the Forbidden Island because no one, let me repeat that, no one can go to Ni'ihau without invitation. Ni'ihau is a privately owned island, and the family that owns it since the 1850s has restricted the people that can go out there. The Robinson family from Scotland has owned a major portion of Kauai. Here's Kauai. They actually own about half of Kauai and the entire island of Ni'ihau. And Ni'ihau is something of a cultural preserve. The people that live in Ni'ihau have lived there forever. They're the descendants of the original Hawaiians, and they speak Hawaiian on that island. They are very protective of their island, and you don't go out there unless it's by invitation. You have to get permission from the Robinson family or from people on the island to go out to Ni'ihau. And at one time, before I flew for the airlines, my airline, I flew tours, and our company had one pilot who was allowed to fly over Ni'ihau. He was a friend of the Robinson family, and his plane was the only one. We had 10-seat Piper Chieftains, and John Callahan was the only pilot of our group that was allowed to fly and show the passengers Ni'ihau. The rest of us couldn't. We could look at it from a distance, but not directly over the island. Then Kauai, as we head back towards the east, is called the Garden Island. It's a very beautiful island. It's, you might call it heavily eroded. The island is lush, and there's no barren areas except for up on the top of Mount Waialeale. And on top of Waialeale, it looks like a moonscape. Waialeale is one of the wettest places on the earth. It gets just enormous amounts of rain. And I've actually forgotten how many hundreds of inches it gets per year. But it literally looks like a moonscape. And there's only just a handful of days each year when you can actually fly over Waialeale. And luckily for my two daughters and myself, on a day when I had some empty seats and they were along with me, we got to see the top of Waialeale with the passengers. And it's amazing. It's just, it's so overcast all the time that vegetation has a hard time growing, and it looks like a moonscape. But the rest of the island is just incredibly lush. Everything is green on Kauai. Those of you that have been there, I'm sure know what it's like. It's a beautiful place to visit. And Kauai is a favorite filming place for Steven Spielberg. He's filmed several of his movies on that island. The river on Kauai is called the Wailua River, and it winds its way down from Mount Waialeale out to the ocean. It comes out on the east side of the island, and there's a big bend in the river, and there's a meadow that goes uphill from the this part of the river, and Spielberg filmed the first of the Indiana Jones movies in that meadow back in 1980, I believe it was, or 81. And in the scene, Harrison Ford, who plays the part of Indiana Jones, is being chased by Indians with big spears across this meadow, and he runs down to the river, and there's a biplane sitting out in the river that he's going to escape on. And while we're on the subject, I'll tell you more about it. The pilot that flew the biplane is a good friend. He was a pilot for my airline, and he's known as something of a character. He would like to play crazy tricks on people. Nothing harmful, but he had a great sense of humor. And he was chosen to fly this biplane off the Wailua River. And one of the things about biplanes, especially, this was a pontoon biplane. It's a float plane. You have to get the plane up on what's called the plane. You start moving along in the water, and you're initially mushing down in the water, but once you get your speed up, the plane will actually, the pontoons will come up and sit on top of the water. And those of you that have speedboats know about this. When you first start out in the speedboat, it'll kind of mush its way through, but once you pick up some speed, then it'll sit up on top of the water and skim along the top. And the same thing has to be done with a pontoon plane. You've got to get it up on the top, on the planing on the water, and then you can finally break free and fly off. Well, Fred Sorensen, the pilot, practiced flying on the river, and everything seemed to work fine. And he had to follow the curve of the river as it made a turn to the right in order to build up speed and then finally get airborne. But after a few practices, they were set to film. Well, he tried it with the camera on the left wing. Now, from your perspective, there's the left wing, and he discovered there was quite a bit of drag from the camera. If you have something big sitting out there, it's going to block your airflow, and so it required that he use full right rudder to make that right turn to go around, to follow the river as it made its right turn around the meadow. And it required full right rudder to make the turn. But it worked, so they felt safe to film. So they put Harrison Ford in the back seat of this biplane and put Fred up in the front seat. And then they had Fred film his scene first. And his lines were, "What's the matter, you big sissy? Afraid of a little old snake?" Well, the storyline is that the character, Indiana Jones, is terrified of snakes. And later in the movie, he gets dropped into this chamber with all the snakes in it, has to save Karen Allen, his girlfriend. And it turns out that Sorensen, the pilot, has a boa on the floor. And when Harrison Ford gets in, Indiana Jones, he sees the snake and he starts to freak out. And so Fred's comments are, "What's the matter with you, big sissy? Are you afraid of a little old snake?" So they shot that initially, with Fred saying his lines. Then they landed the plane, set up again, and then Spielberg tells Harrison Ford, "I want you to act really terrified when you see the snake." And Harrison Ford is sitting behind Sorensen, the pilot. So Sorensen can't see what's going on. And Ford decides what he's going to do is to climb up into his chair and do something. And it was nearly fatal what he did. They start the scene and they're heading down the river, and Fred's up on the step, he's planing, and they're about to go airborne, and all of a sudden the airplane won't turn right. Now Fred has to turn right to be able to follow the curve of the river. Airplane won't turn right. And what's happened is Harrison Ford has opened the door on his side of the plane. He's opened the left door, and he's created more drag for that airplane. The plane is now pulling even more to the left, and Fred can't turn right. He's doing all he can to go straight ahead. And what ends up happening is they crash. All Fred could do was to pull back on the power, try to force the plane back into the water to get drag. They went right into the bank. The pontoons came off, the wings came off, the camera went flying. Ford and Sorensen both went flying. Spielberg's across the river watching this, and he's like, "Oh my God, that's my main actor in our airplane." And it's the end of the movie. They actually filmed this scene at the very end of the filming schedule, but in reality, it starts the beginning of the movie. And now Spielberg's thinking, "Oh my gosh, my star's dead," because they're laying all over the place over there in the marsh. Well, it turns out they survived. And this happened on a Thursday, so the production company got on the phone and they called all over the country to try to find what they're called tape and dope experts. This airplane is a fabric-covered airplane, and it's a biplane, and they're like from the 1930s. So they found a whole team of aircraft rebuilders. They got them out to Kauai, and they went to work on the plane. Now realize, it's costing Spielberg $1 million a day to have all these people sitting around waiting to shoot the scene again. They started on a Thursday, and by the next Tuesday, they had the plane put back together, the pontoons back on it. They set everything back up again, but this time they put the camera on the right wing, and Spielberg told Ford very specifically, "Do not get out of your seat. Stay in your seat and just say your lines, and don't open that door." Well, then everything worked perfectly. With the camera on the right wing, then the pull was to the right, so Fred was able to make the right turn. Ford stayed in his seat, and it all went great. So the next time you guys watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's the first of the Indiana Jones movies. As you're watching that scene, hit pause and look across the river, and you'll see a big black spot. And that's where they had crashed. That's where they went into the marsh and survived, luckily. Whew, for Spielberg. And for those guys, too. I'm sure they're glad to be alive. Well, Fred was one of our DC-9 captains that flew inter-island, and he told us a few months later, he was on a flight, and a flight attendant brought up a piece of paper, a napkin from the cabin, and there was a guy in first class who said, "How you doing? I'm the guy that nearly killed us a couple months ago." And it was Harrison Ford. He was in the back of the plane. He was back in first. And so Fred went back and talked to him. But it was a very eventful thing to happen. And it happened right here on the island of Kauai. And my plan tonight is to talk about the Big Island. So as we continue across the chain, we come to Oahu, which is called the gathering place. 80% of the population of the state of Hawaii lives on Oahu. 80% of 1.1 million is about 880,000. Then as you continue east, you've got the island of Molokai, which is called the Friendly Island. Island of Lanai used to be called the Pineapple Island. And there was a time when the entire island of Lanai was covered in pineapple. And it was amazing to fly our passengers over the island and see all these enormous conveyor belts coming off these tractors that would bring the pineapple into the center, and then they'd be loaded onto trucks and hauled out of the fields. And the workers would be out there with machetes hacking off the pineapples as they went. And then the pineapples would be taken to Honolulu to the Dole Cannery, where they would chop them up, make them into sliced pineapple, chunk pineapple, crushed pineapple. And what's ironic is that in the old days, they used to throw away the pineapple juice. They'd actually just dump it out on the ground, and it soaked down in the ground, and it really sweetened the ground. And for many, many years, you could smell the pineapple coming up out of the ground. I actually worked in a mutual fund office at one time over by where the cannery was, and it was just amazing how we could always smell pineapple. But then somebody got wise years later and said, "Hey, let's can this stuff and sell it. It's got value." So then they stopped throwing it away. But for many years, the pineapple juice went into the ground. It wasn't too smart of an idea. So Lanai is the pineapple island. Then as we continue east, we've got Maui. This is Maui right here. It's kind of got two parts. The eastern side is the mountain of Haleakala, which means house of the sun. Hale is house, La is sun, and Ala is of the. So Haleakala, house of the sun. And then to the west, we have the West Maui Mountains. And on the east side of the West Maui Mountains is a beautiful valley called the Eola Valley. Now in Hawaiian, I's are E's. Luckily, O's are O's, so you don't have to remember O's. But the Eola Valley has a needle called the Eo needle that sticks up in the valley, and it's a pretty place to hike up to. And then, of course, Maui has incredible golf courses. Over on the western side, over by Kanapali, that entire resort area is just gorgeous. And then you can go down by Kihei, between the two mountains along the ocean shore, and then up on the north side, where the airport is Kahului and Wailuku. Those of you guys that like to golf, there's county golf courses in Hawaii. Now the commercial courses can be expensive. The county courses for locals are only $6. If you have a Hawaii driver's license, it's $6 for 18 holes. And I used to love to golf at the golf course just west of Wailuku. It was called the Wai'he Golf Course. It's named after our former governor, well, his family name. His family was located up in that area. And there would be times on our tours where we'd spend entire days on one island, and the passengers would get on a van and then be taken on a tour of that particular island. So the pilots would be on that island for the entire day. And since I like to play golf, and since we had a pilot van, I'd throw my golf clubs in the back of the airplane, behind the back row seats. And then once we got to whatever island, either Maui or Kauai or the Big Island, I'd take my clubs and go play golf. Well, I would have passengers who would board the plane, and sometimes the men would look behind that back row seats and they'd see my golf clubs back there. And they would literally get down on their hands and knees and say, "Please, please, take me, take me." I tell them, "I'm sorry, I can't take you off the tour. You paid your something $100 to go on the tour, and that's the plan. I can't take you off the tour." But they would just have given anything to have gone and spent the day golfing with me. And I always used to think I should set up a golf tour of Hawaii using our planes and just take people on tours of the golf courses, which in some ways is what the Japanese do. We actually have Japanese tourists that fly over from Japan to play golf in Hawaii. And here's the incredible irony. I've been told that it can cost up to $2,000 for 18 holes of golf in Japan, if you're a golfer and you want to play golf. But you can get on a Japan Airlines plane, 747, and fly to Honolulu, spend the night, play golf the next day, fly home to Japan the second night. So you're gone for 2 nights and 1 day, and it's only $1,500. It's cheaper than playing a round of golf in Japan. So we have plane loads of golfers, Japanese golfers, that fly to Hawaii to play golf because it's a price break. And I guess during their winter months, it's probably a good time to come to Hawaii to get out of that snow and cold. Golf is a big thing in Hawaii. So continuing, we talked about Maui, and then across from Maui is the island of Kaho'olawe. Kaho'olawe is the island that was used as a target in World War II. The Navy actually bombed the island, and it's littered with all kinds of bombs. But the irony is, it's a beautiful island. It'd make a fantastic resort island. And it's been trashed. But back in the 1980s, our U.S. Senator, Daniel Inouye, who's since passed, condolences to his family, he got a bill passed in Congress that allocated $400 million to clean up Kaho'olawe. And they've been working on it ever since. And it's getting there. Taking a long time. There's a lot of ordnance that was dumped, but they're getting it fixed up. So now we go to our last island, which is the Big Island. That's my island. My wife and I have lived there since 1993 on a fairly regular basis. And we actually are on the east side of the island. Now let me, I was afraid this won't work. I'm going to give you another view of it, but with the chroma color behind me, as you can see, the background comes through, so we can't do this very well. But at the same time, you can get a general idea of the layout of the island. And what we can even do too is to use my book. Now, for those of you that are going to go to Hawaii, I would recommend that you pick up a guidebook if you're going to go to the Big Island. And this one's a very, very good one. It's called Hawaii, the Big Island Revealed, the Ultimate Guidebook by Andrew Dowdy and Harriet Friedman. And they have newer editions of it, but it gives you a great breakdown of our island. Now, obviously, our greatest claim to fame is the volcano. We have Kilauea, the world's most active volcano. Now, this picture is actually of the Pu'uo'o, which is a cinder cone that's downhill from Kilauea. It appeared in 1983 and has continued to be active ever since. And it is quite spectacular. Now, in 1983, it fountained. You actually had lava shooting into the sky, creating an incredible display of lava. And here's what our lava looks like at night as it pours out along the ground. But when the Pu'uo'o was fountaining, it lit up the entire eastern side of the island. It was like a giant nightlight up above Hilo, and it made everything look orange. Here's some lava that's flowing out on the ground. And it is spectacular, needless to say. Now, the lava has to go somewhere. Here's a view of lava going into the sea. The lava goes right down to the water and then sploosh, and in it goes. Now, this lava is 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very hot. And when it hits that water, it sizzles and pops and makes all kinds of incredible noises. And it causes the salt water to break apart. And those of you that have had chemistry know that salt is actually sodium chloride, NaCl, and chloride is what they use to make chlorine bleach, like Clorox. And when the salt water gets evaporated by the lava, it not only evaporates, but the salt breaks down into the sodium and the chlorine, and you can smell the chlorine. And they warned the pilots, stay out of those fumes, because there's chlorine gas in that mixture that's coming up. And not only do you not want to breathe it, but you don't want to get it on your airplane. And I had a picture in here, and I can't find it, of all the steam coming up from the lava as it goes in the ocean. It generates enormous steam clouds. So back to our story. The Big Island is called the Big Island because it's so huge. Here's a comparison of the Big Island to the other islands in Hawaii. The other islands would all fit in the Big Island. As you can see in this upper view, you've got Oahu to the right, Molokai and Kaho'olawe above, Lanai up in the top left corner, then Kauai, Maui, and Ni'ihau on the left side. Well, as you can see, they don't even begin to cover up all the land space of the Big Island. And what we tell people is that the Big Island is actually so big, it's almost twice as big as all the other islands put together. And then in the picture below that, you can see the state of Connecticut and Rhode Island compared to the Big Island, and it's almost as big as both of them. So it is a big island, as we say. No phone calls. Anybody have comments, questions? You want to challenge what I'm telling you? And then, here's a curiosity. We have a state bird, and the name is Nene. Now, as you look at that, it might look somewhat familiar because it's a goose. It is a goose. And they think it's actually a descendant of Canadian geese. They think that maybe a flock of Canadian geese somehow got lost, which is pretty hard to do, on their way from Canada down to South America, Central America, wherever they go to winter. And somehow they ended up in Hawaii. Well, Hawaii is 2,600 miles from North America, so they had to get really lost. Unless, of course, they were coming from Alaska. And Alaska is due north of Hawaii, as we well know at my airline. We fly up to Anchorage every week, a couple times a week. And I guess they could have gone due south and found Hawaii. But when they got to Hawaii, they changed their appearance. And they ended up with stripes. And these are considered our state bird, the nene. And they're endangered and protected. Oh, I have a phone call. Hello.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
Just fine. Who's this?
Well, this is John from here in Tucson. I just wanted to ask you, I've been watching your show for a long time, and I wanted to see what your predictions were for the sun, moon, celestial, point in our galaxy, how everything's lining up right now, and what's kind of in the future for seismic activity in the western United States here?
Good question. And to be honest, if you go to the internet, to YouTube, and look up, I think it's program 1.4, no, I'm sorry, it's 1.6. It talks about earthquakes and how our Earth is going through something like a metamorphosis. We've already seen a planet destroyed between Mars and Jupiter. There should have been a planet in that orbit, and it's gone. And we've already seen our sister planet, Venus, reverse her rotation. Now, when you look at the planets in our solar system from above...
Right. Yeah, Venus goes the other way, right?
Exactly. They call it retrograde. And it's opposite of all the rest of the planets. All the other planets in our solar system are rotating from west to east. The sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. So they're going counterclockwise. If you look at it from above the North Pole looking down, except for Venus, and she's going clockwise. Well, now why? Well, it has to do with harmonics, and that's what this program talks about, right. 1.6. And at some point soon, Mars is going to stop.
Basically, Newton's law of gravity is starting to affect the certain aspects of what we're seeing in the sky. I mean, it definitely affects the rotation. We had that earthquake in Indonesia, and we knocked off our axis by what?
Right.
8 point something.
That's true. And the scientists
influences are affecting everything.
Right. And the scientists believe that that earthquake was so violent because the floor of the Indian Ocean dropped 50 feet over 500 miles. And they say that the action was so violent that it may have caused the Earth to wobble. No. The Earth wobbled and then the ocean floor dropped. And the same with Japan. The Fukushima earthquake that took out those nuclear power plants, it was so violent. And remember, too, those plants were only built for an 8.0 earthquake. And the companies that built those plants never expected to have a 9.2, but they did. And they said that earthquake was so violent that it may have caused the Earth to wobble. Other way around, the Earth wobbled and they had Fukushima. So all these incredible earthquakes, like the one that hit in Virginia a year ago, August, that damaged the Washington Monument. They've never had earthquakes like that in Virginia. And now the Washington Monument is...
Do you believe that's involved with that fracking?
No.
That they're doing there?
That's
they're putting slurry underneath.
Right, that's just minor.
They're...
Yeah, they can't really have any effect. Because when you talk about an Earth, a planet, compared to activities going on the surface, they're a drop in the ocean. What we do to the surface of our planet, as far as like fracking and other stuff, has no effect. You're talking, I guess they call it Titan type activities. Anytime an entire planet is going through what might be called a metamorphosis. And that also brings up stuff about the lava flows off Chile in I believe in the second program at the first level. It talks about this 1.2, UGFP 1.2. It talks about the lava off Chile and how the iron in the lava, which is the same as the lava we have here in Kilauea, will always point towards magnetic north as it cools and crystallizes. But the lava is being carried off to the northwest at a rate of 2 inches per year. And you can measure time by distance. So 20 inches is 10 years, 2 inches per year. 200 inches is 100 years, 2,000 inches is 1,000 years. At 30,000 inches, the lava, the iron particles reverse and point to the South Pole as the North Pole. So every 15,000, and this is a pattern, every 30,000 inches, the iron particles flip. So the North Pole is up where it is now, and then it's down where the South Pole is, and then it's up where the North Pole is. Every 15,000 years, there's a reversal of the poles. And we are at the 15,000 year point. We're due.
So that means I have to go buy a new compass?
No, there's nothing you can do. And that's a good statement too. Did you know that down in Florida, they're having to repaint the runways because all of our airports have markings on the runways based on magnetic heading. And the North Pole has been moving, and it's moved enough now so they have to repaint those runways in Florida to change the number by one number. And it's crazy, but it's happening. We're in that time. There was someone else who was calling. I'm sorry I didn't catch his call.
Sir. Well, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, look up and see some blinking lights that go out every once in a while.
Yeah, there's lots, especially here in Tucson. We're actually a nerve center for what's happening, and Sedona is the diversion. You will always have a diversion. Everybody thinks that all the you might say supernatural or the unexplained activities are up in Sedona. No, they're here in Tucson. We're ground zero. But thank you for calling.
All right, sir. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Aloha. And whoever called earlier, call back again. We'll try to catch you. Sorry I missed your call. So we were talking about the Big Island and the nanny birds, and we're down to 10 minutes. Wow. Time goes fast when you're having fun, huh? Here's a great shot of people looking at lava. Now, pay attention to this picture. Those folks are standing on lava, and there's lava right next to them. It's maybe about 4 to 5 feet away. Well, yeah, that's one of the exciting things about visiting Kilauea. Everywhere else in the world, when a volcano erupts, people run away because volcanoes normally kill people, like Mount St. Helens back in 1980, and good old Harry Truman, the fisherman that was out there on the lake. They figure he probably went up along with his lake when St. Helens erupted because it took out the top 1 cubic mile of that mountain up in Oregon, or in Washington State, just north of Columbia River. But everywhere else in the world, people run away when volcanoes erupt, except in Hawaii. Our volcano is friendly. You can walk right up to the lava and it won't hurt you. Now remember, it's 2,000 degrees. It melts cars. So you can't get too close because you'll get a really bad sunburn. But you can walk right up to the lava and watch it. You can watch it flowing. And what's curious is, as it comes out, if it is allowed to flow unrestricted, it will get a real smooth surface on the top. And you can actually see this lava starting to solidify. The red stuff is the hottest, and then the black part is what's starting to cool. And when it has a smooth outer surface like that, it's called pahoehoe lava. It's spelled P-A-H-O-E-H-O-E. And it's very smooth. And in some cases, it can almost look like glass. When you look down at it from above, it'll have a very glassy sheen, and it really looks like glass, which is kind of amazing. But if the lava becomes obstructed and can't flow smoothly, then it will take on a totally different appearance. And I have a picture of it here. Here we go. Now, look at the difference between these two types of lava. On our right, we have the shiny stuff. That's the pahoehoe. But on our left is the kind of like cindery or chinkery lava. That's called A'. It's very difficult to walk on. It'll be sharp and jagged and rough-edged. But that's lava that has been, you actually can see it down here at the bottom of the page. That's lava that has been pushed and becomes, as this author says, clinkery. There's a word. And then pahoehoe is on the right, and it's smooth and ropey, like thick cake batter. And then also mixed in with the lava, you'll find Pele's hair, Pele is the name of the goddess of our volcano, and there'll be real thin, wispy strands of lava that look like hair, and they call it Pele's hair. They're very sharp. I warn you guys, if you pick them up, be careful because you can get cut on them. And then there's a legend about the volcano. Never, ever take a volcano rock home with you. If you do, and you haven't had it blessed, you haven't gotten permission to take it, when you get home, all kinds of bad things are going to happen. Your dog is going to die, your house is going to burn down, a family member is going to get cancer, something bad is going to happen. And we have a visitor center at the volcano. The volcano is actually part of the national park. It's Kilauea National Park. And at the visitor center, they have a great big pile of boxes that have been sent in from all over the world by people that find out after the fact that you don't take a lava rock. Because when they get home, bad things start happening. And when they find out that it's that piece of lava, they send it back to the national park. So they have this big pile of boxes from all over the world of lava rocks that people have returned so they can stop the bad stuff from happening. Madame Pele is very protective of her volcano, and you don't take her lava rocks. And she is still very much with us, and she's very playful. She's mischievous. We'll hear all kinds of stories, especially about young couples, newlyweds, that will be driving down the highway, and they'll see a young guy or young girl hitchhiking on the side of the road. So they'll stop and pick them up and give them a ride. And they'll start talking to them, and then poof, and they disappear. It scares the daylights out of the newlyweds. That's Pele. She can be a man or a woman, and she'll appear as a young person. Or there'll be other times when folks will be out in the country, and they'll be looking for a beach or a famous place or something, and they can't find it. So they see an old house on the side of the road with a big front porch and pushed the wrong button there. A big front porch with a rocking chair and an old man or old woman, and they will stop and start talking to them and have a nice conversation. And then they get the directions on where they want to go from this old man or old woman. And then after they've gone and done their thing and they're on the way back, they want to stop and thank them. No house, no porch, no rocking chair. Poof, Madame Pele. She's playful and mischievous, but she protects her volcano. And she also plays another very, very, very important role in our world. And I have not been given the clearance to tell you folks what that is. But it has to do with the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verses 1 and 10, with the beasts from the sea and the beasts from the land. The Big Island has lots of other sights to see as well. We have, let's see, what do we have time for here? We have black sand beaches. Now here's the south part of the Big Island, down around South Point, which is the southernmost point in the United States. And we have a black sand beach at Punalu'u. It's one of the most accessible black sand beaches on the island, and it's amazing. It's lava rock that has been basically exploded by the water, and then the sand gets left behind. And the lava rock is actually very fertile. My wife and I had an orchid farm at one time, and orchids just love lava rock, and they'll grow in it profusely. All kinds of plants will grow in it. Even after the lava's flown out, and it looks like it's a barren desert, the different trees will start to grow. And they go nuts in this lava rock. There's some kind of special energy that makes them go crazy. And then here's a view of the south end of the island. There's also a green sand beach that you can go to, but it takes some hiking or a four-wheel drive to get into. The main road is Highway 11 that goes around the south end of the island, and this is called South Point here. And then the green sand beach is down at the bottom of the highway and then off to the east. But it's green. It's literally green sand. And once again, you're welcome to call. Let's put the name back up. And what else do we have? Here's Well, oh, here we go. Here's a great view of the smoke plumes. As the lava goes into the ocean, you end up with these big steam clouds of the lava condensing, or actually boiling, the seawater, and then having the steam go up from the lava. And you stay out of that if you're in an airplane, because you can have bad things happen if you try to breathe that chlorine vapor. It is not healthy. So, and I'll just do this real quick too. We're almost out of time, but let me give you a quick view. Here is the Kilauea main crater, and we'll back off a little bit so you can see more. The national park includes the main crater and then all the area down towards the ocean. And as we look at the main crater, we see the Halimama fire pit, which is called the Halimama crater in this picture, but we call it the fire pit, which is in the floor of the main crater. This is the Kilauea main crater. It's 2 miles across. There's a chain of craters, a crater rim drive that you can drive all the way around. And at this point, it's closed just past the Jagger or the Jaeger Museum. A year ago, October, Halimama started fountaining. It actually has a big crack. Oh, there's a call. I'll try to catch you. Are you there? Hello?
Oh, hey, how you all doing today?
Just fine. We've got 34 seconds. Go for it. Are you there?
I just want to know about the caldera at Yellowstone. Do you think that's going to blow anytime soon? And if not, I'm going to sell my cabin.
Oh, that's a good question. And the way these earthquakes are going, it's anybody's guess. We're having enormous volcanic activity, the Ring of Fire around the Pacific. We're in for some exciting times. It's the best I can say. And we're down to 7 seconds, 6 seconds. I'm going to lose you anyway. So I appreciate your calls tonight. Yeah. And have a great time. Ahui ho. Aloha.